Hello, 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 Ohioans, hello, Americans, hello, people across the United States. Welcome to The Mediator with me, Brian West, where it is my duty to give you the top 8 stories, headlines, and developing news stories that made it throughout the week. This is a show where I navigate the news just for you so you can be informed, stay informed, knowing what's going on. If you want to contribute any time during the show or contribute at all, you can go to METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, methodating.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or you could just sponsor a program. Today's show is pretty much, we've got a lot going on in the media as usual, but the value and the state of the just to get you to understand money and the economy and why what's causing, we have a big problem right now because the government is shut down. That's been the I was just flashing throughout the whole week, just trying to figure out what's happening inside of the world. But like I said, it is my duty to come in to thaw things out, to get you to understand the difference between right and wrong, and to get you to try to the difference between the right, the left, and what's the facts, and to try to shine some light on reality and what we need to do to keep the ball rolling. If I don't do anything good in my life, if I've never done anything well, if I've ever made anybody proud, the one thing I can say about being in the mediator is I feel up for the job. I feel up for the task. I encourage myself every week. I get in the mirror and I inspire myself to do this, to dedicate myself to look through over 250 stories a week to try to give you some sense of what's happening in reality. Like I said, if you want to contribute anyway during the show, you can go to METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, and it doesn't take much. All you have to do is buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or you can just sponsor a program. Or if you want to engage in any of our services, you can come by the office at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio, where I'm there giving out services from Monday through Friday to 10 to 6 p.m., giving out services to the community to raise, all the money goes back into the community to make independent projects and to fund shows like this in the Mediator. So it's not cheap, but somebody's got to do it, and I've volunteered for the job. Also, if you want to check out what stories almost made it to the media, you can go to the website as well, METHOD, I had a few comments on a few stories that made it in, and you can always interact like that. Or if your signal is not clear enough, if you want to tune in online, you go to www.600wsom.com, and you can also tune in there. Now let me read the disclaimer. These top 8 stories are only documented for records and to highlight topics for those in the business of talk radio, talk media, and those who just want to stay informed. Now folks, it's time. Let's get to the top 8 stories that made it to the media this week. Story number 1. Something is brewing up in America, and it has a lot to do with civility, money, and reform. Folks, if you haven't taken notice, there's two sides battling it out. I did some research, a lot of research on what's going on, and I've always tried to if I've done anything, I've always tried to show people who listen to the top 8, try to let them know that this is nothing. What we're seeing is nothing new. A lot of the gimmicks, a lot of the tricks, a lot of the what you're seeing happening in politics, some of it may be more revealing, but a lot of what people have been talking about when they talk about religious issues. But the thing is some of the switches have just never been turned. Like, we've never had someone in office who've just basically said, okay, it's going to be my way or the highway. It's always been negotiable. There's always been an understanding of the Constitution of the United States. There's always been an understanding of the duties of government officials. There's always been some understanding of the citizens and their duties as citizens. If there hasn't, there's always been a balance, a mediator, somebody to give people, like if you have a concern, a grievance, then you know where to take it to. But right now, what we're seeing is wounds that have been. It's just amazing that we're coming up on the civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King's holiday, because Martin Luther King not only fought for civil rights, but he was a big advocate for workers' rights as well. and he was a big he talked about people in poverty, and he talked about the underroots of the American civility, things that people don't see on TV every day, things that people don't hear about. Where right now, the fact that everyone has been so not just relying on or waiting for some type of a solution that could just fall from the sky. We're probably seeing happening right now as people are finding out that the solution may be within themselves. If I can get any point across today, but there's some stories that are going on, like you have an LA teachers they're preparing for strikes, and people are just begging for civility in just the country right now because everybody is rebelling against something. There was a story about a rapper from France. I believe he's from he's made lyrics saying talking about hanging white people, and there's just so much going on in these headlines where people are finding a voice in an audience, and they're finding people to fuel. You even have the president. You have different things going on in this administration. The different things going on in this country right now that are all when you boil it down to have something to do with civility, civil disobedience, civil obedience, understanding law, the rules of engagement, things like that. So you're seeing all of these things collide in all these forces, and when you talk about the essence of just understanding the moral compass of human behavior and the Constitution, we may be at a crossroads because of the fact that you have two parties in the White House battling it out, and it gets deep. It gets really, really deep because you have a class of society who have deliberately not been informed, and you have elites who know that they're not informed. So there's some things happening, and it's happening in America. So that's why story number one crept in, and something is brewing up in America and even the world, and it has a lot to do with civility, money, and reform. There was a story that surfaced in about college students and how they're hungry, and many feel that government programs could do more to help them. So there's some stories that are surfacing. Ohio school resource officers being removed after a resource officer was removed after giving the principal a parking ticket. So things are happening, and they're referencing the law or what's written in stone as a way to justify their actions. They're basically saying like people are being hypocritical or they're saying do this, but they haven't been following the law. So this is what we're seeing, and even when you talk about these racial tensions, everybody knows that there's a racial problem in America, and they know how to flip those switches if you want to start some type of a riot. So the story number one can gain some steam in the next week as people start, especially if this government shutdown, if this drags on, because of the fact that there's something in the stories in the top 8 today that may be of some assistance to get things to thaw out, and to get people to realize that the government, that if people are paying taxes, if you're paying into the system, your money, if you want federal workers on the job, if there are no federal workers, then you're not getting your money's worth when you are paying your taxes. And this big wall issue has something to do with what we're seeing, because there's got to be some justification or some reasoning behind the logics here. And some of the research that I do, a wall right now may be appealing to some people, but what we have to get out of this show today is it logical? Is it needed? Is it really that important? Especially when you have a powerhouse like the United States, and you have the fact that other countries do not have as many resources. So if we get anything out of today's show, as civil Americans, as me being an American myself, born into this country, indoctrinated, and went to the military, indoctrinated to serve and protect the Constitution. So if we get anything out of today's show, it will be civility and understanding if the wall is needed or not. You be the judge. You be able to decide on yourself if a wall is if it is that important to make your own civilians and citizens and your own government suffer over a wall. There's also some stories that surface in the top 8. In number 1, there are claims that artificial intelligence may displace 40% of the world's workers as soon as 2035. And a Virginia student finds that there is increased bullying in areas that voted for Trump. There was also a story that surfaced that said something very strange is happening with the Earth's magnetic North Pole. When you talk about if you talk about, is global warming causing this, or is this just something, a pattern that the Earth is taking, a normal pattern where the Earth maybe be changing directions? Does this have anything to do with man-made? So these stories are starting to create a new way of thinking and a new way of regulation and reforming and where money is spent, investments, and how people are behaving. Could the Earth's altitude be causing could it be that when humans get close to the sun they get crazier? So these things may spark some light bulbs or some ideas in your head. There was also a story that surfaced in story number 1 about a man that was found dead at a Democratic donor's house. And this is not the first time. And they also found that there's been plutonium leaking into the Pacific Ocean. This has been going on since the Cold War. I guess it's a nuke test site. This has been going on for years. So these things are starting to take note because of media. And we hear people saying that the media is bad. No, the media is informing us of things that are happening. Yes, there may be some mistakes, but no man is perfect. But like I said, in today's show, if I don't give you an idle mind to get you to think for yourself, then I may not be doing my job as a mediator. But folks, there's something going on in America and in the world where people are becoming more enlightened. They're becoming more aware, and they're taking action into their own hands because they're losing trust in not only their government, but they're losing trust in their officials. They're losing, or some people just don't know how the system works. Some people don't know how to let their voice be heard, and many people are using tools like Facebook or social media, and they may not understand that there's a procedure to handle grievances. And some people don't feel like they're part of the justice system. They've been treated fairly, so they just don't bother with it. That was a story. That was the case with a story that surfaced about R. Kelly and women. So these a group of women got together and they took matters into their own hand. They created videos, just basically saying that the man, an R&B singer, has been being a womanizer for a long time. So if you want to contribute anyway, you can go to METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com. You're the mediator with me, Brian West, where I give you the top 8 stories that made it through, the top 8 headlines developing news stories that made it throughout the week. Now, I'm not a perfect man, but I try my best to do, like I said, I'm trying my best to work as hard as I can to navigate and find the most important news stories. And like I said, I go through almost 50 to 200 stories, probably more than that, every week, to come in here to give you so you can see what's happening. If you may miss something during the week, if you don't have a lot of time and you need time to catch up on what's actually happening in the news, then this may be the show for you. And if you want to contribute or you want to be some type of help to the show, all you have to do is go to METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. That's www.METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. And all you have to do is buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. And you can just sponsor a program, or you can stop by the office. And if you're trying to get rid of something or sell something, you want to get rid of it, and some of the proceeds go towards back into the community here in the Northeast Ohio area, you can just stop by 5648 Market Street. I'm there Monday through Friday, 10 to 6 p.m., helping out the community. Now let's get to story number 2. Because, like I said, today's show, I'm still battling sinus headache, so if I sound a little congested, that's why. But story number 2 is we're trying to even this out here, because we're headed into some uncharted territories. This is the longest government shutdown in history, in U.S. history, and many people are wondering, is there a solution, or why is it that you have almost 20, you're almost headed to 2020, and you have government employees not being paid. So the story number 2 is Congress hiding something? Now, folks, there's 3 branches of government. You have the legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. These branches are supposed to balance out power. It means, like, if something is elevated, this is the founding of this nation. Now, as many people may not believe that the laws are unfair, or they don't feel like there's justice, all you have to do is refer to the Constitution. And life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for people, so people can live civility. And you can see it in the founding of the nation, that there was confusion. And if George Washington did leave his slaves in his will, that may be that obviously the man did not have some guilt in his heart for what was happening when this country was founded, or the way this country was built. Sometimes you take a direction and you move into a direction, and you start to regret, or you start to renege on the decisions that you made. You start to have some doubts on your choices, and you start to try to practice what you preach. And everybody knew slavery was wrong. There's been some things happening in the founding of the United States of America, and it's not all been good. But we're at a point right now where people are starting to wonder, and they're starting to come alive. There's voices starting to pop up, and we have to ask ourselves, when we go to bed, when people are going to bed and they're going to sleep and they're kissing their kids, and daddy is going off to work, or mommy's going off to work, people are asking themselves, can we trust the government? They're always asking themselves, is the government hiding something? People are paranoid. They have a lack of trust in authorities, and they see something wrong, they say, well, we can't trust them. We close up shop. Somebody gets burnt, can't trust them. So there's some things happening. One of the things that's happening is the U.S. has begun in the process of withdrawing from Syria. This is a report from the Pentagon. And there's also some other things that are speculations that China has been spying on not only America, but other countries as well. This is a report from Polish police saying that they have been seeing some suspicion that there's been some spies. There's also some stuff that the Democrats are shutting down a terrorist committee to create a Trump investigation panel. They're thinking that the president may have had, or not only just this administration, but some of our high-ranking officials have had some ties with Russian officials. There's also some speculations that there is a United States American sitting in a Moscow jail. This is a story that surfaced, and they're saying that he has been detained because that the government, I guess the Russian government, thought that he was spying. Some people say he wasn't spying; he was just there. So I think his family said that. But then Iran confirms the arrest of a former U.S. sailor. So things are happening across the globe, and what the citizens are wondering is, what we have to try to tie this into, especially as Americans, is, does this have anything to do with why the president is so eager to shut down the government? And there's also been some things that surface as well. Trump says that he is cutting off FEMA money for California fires. A Russian lawyer at Trump Tower meeting has been charged in connection in a money laundering case. So, and the fact that Mueller believes that Manafort fed information to the Russians with intel ties. So, folks, we're reaching a tipping point. They always say that in a movie, especially if you ever watched Brewster's, I think it was a Richard Pryor movie back in the day. It was Brewster's Millions, I think it was, where it talks about this. In a movie, you create a script. It works its way up to the climax, and then it comes down to the resolution where everything starts to reveal itself. And we're in 2 years of President Trump's administration. But what people watching in the political arena is they're starting to see the story of politics reach its climax, and all of the pieces that have been put in place over the years, the tax dollars being spent, votes, people starting to see how democracy works, and they're starting to see all of this stuff come to light. And there's some innocent victims that have been left in this battle, and right now there has to be some explanation on why taxpayers are not getting their money's worth when it comes from when we talk about government. What you have to understand is, if you need to understand how government works, the national debt, it's like printing paper. You take everybody off of one standard, and the government gives citizens money to spend, and it's to stimulate the economy. It's like a paper system, and the only thing the citizens have to really worry about is inflation, and if the government is doing their jobs. And if the government is not doing their jobs, then it is in the Constitution that the citizens, the people who are paying the taxes, if they're civil servants, are not doing their job, then they have a right to get them out of office, to basically shake things up. They have a right to vote. They have a right to protest. They have a voice in democracy. That leads us to story number 3, which made it into the media this week. Story number 3 is money altering our thought process as a country. Has money changed the roots where I had some things, actually, I was just talking to Buddy Gary about it, one of the board ops here. I was talking to him about this week, about how people have become ruthless. People, because the system is designed by money and capitalism, people have become ruthless because they need money. They need money for drugs. They need money for medical treatment. They need money so if people are not living without a paycheck, this is what people have to understand and what's going on right now is inside some of these federal people's houses. They don't have any money coming in. Anybody who has grew up in poverty know what it's like not to have a financial income. I'm a living witness. I've seen this. I've done this myself. Without money, you become like an animal, because you start to create. You get creative. You find ways to feed yourself, and you become ruthless. You become you have to find, because that's your source of income. You cannot buy things. You cannot get things. You're not a part of the system. You're not a part of it. You're just a homeless person out on the street. And there's some stories that have surfaced even about mayors of cities trashing homeless men's blankets and things like that. President stepping down from the World Bank. The system, the whole system, is a money system. Everything has value. These are laws of business. Many financial analysts have been crying, and they've taken out radio slots, radio programs. You may hear them all the time. They have always tried to find a way for people to understand money. They say that we need more schools, more classes. And some even say that debt is not only an American problem, but it's an individual problem as well. These are things that are happening within the system. People are committing crimes. They're robbing banks. They're going into inner city communities. They don't know the value of their homes. Some even don't even know that the metal inside of their car may be worth more than gold. So that lets you know that there's some type of a disconnect. People have been programmed. I myself have seen it. If you grow up in poverty, you know that there are people around you who do not understand money, but they know how to get it in certain ways, whether it's borrowing and not paying back. And this is what you base if you get anything out of this whole situation. But there's something in the Constitution. There's some things in the Constitution that we may be forgetting. And it has nothing to do with money. It's just law and rules of governing. So these things are coming to light, folks. And they're saying that the national debt is nothing more than a historical record of all the dollars that were spent by government but not taxed back. So you've got over trillions of dollars in government debt that's saying that the citizens or people or nations around the world have not been paying back. It's like understanding money. Okay, if I have $1, I go to Mexico, it may be worth a quarter. Who knows? But the values change. So people have been abusing the system. When you see people channeling drugs into the country, they take the drugs, they make maybe a big profit off of the drugs in America, they take it back to Mexico, build an empire. So money has changed our thought process. It's changed everything. The way women think. Women are taking their clothes off to please the world. They take their clothes off to feed themselves. They don't want to live a normal life. They don't want a husband. They need money. People, sex trafficking, everything. It's all based off money. They may tell you they love you. They may tell you oh, you're such a sweet little, but deep inside their heart, is it because of the money? You can look at the richest man in the world right now. He may not be happy. There's some things going on in this country, folks, and I'm drooling at the mouth because myself, I'm starting to see some things happening, and I've been putting in work. No, I've been putting in work, and I've been watching. I'm like a raven, a crow sitting up on the wires, and I've watched things happening, and I'm starting to see that there's some unsettling things happening when you talk about understanding the way something was built. And there's been some cheaters. Nobody's perfect. But when the government spends more than it collects, and it has to form a tax, then other payments have to be collected to make up for the difference. Inflation is a real issue, folks. Government has been investing, or they've been printing out dollars, and right now they're saying that the president is saying I'm not, or the Congress is saying we're not budging until we get a border wall in this budget. But folks, is it worth it? Is this wall worth spending taxpayer money? Or is this just another game? Another way to get everybody's attention. If you don't understand, some people even refuse to be involved in this government. Many African Americans have always refused to be a part of the United States system. That's why you see thieves doing things or things happening in the inner city. There's just a bitterness towards the gut. There's just lack of trust. But as the mediator, I've done my research. If you want to contribute anyway, MBTHOD, the number 8, INC.com, methodating.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. I don't ask for much. I said, I'm doing everything I can to get people to understand what's actually happening. If my words are not, if you don't understand them, like I said, if I'm not doing my job to inform you, then I apologize. But as I take it as my duty, I've put this among myself to try to even things out so people can understand there's something going on between the right and the left. Stand in the middle, getting both sides of the story. If you want to contribute anyway, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, methodating.com. If you choose to stand informed and know what's going on, then I commend you. But if you want to contribute, if you want to be a part of it, all you have to do is go to the website, www.method, the number 8, inc.com. You can buy something, click on something, watch something, or to read something, or you can just sponsor a program. Or if you want to be a local activist, you can come to the office. We're at 5648 Market Street in Mormon, Ohio. I have bills to pay just like everybody else. I've had a rough life. I'm a humble person, but I'm hanging in there. And I hate to see people suffering. And I'm doing. I even took it upon myself to read through the Constitution to because I've been a federal worker. I was hurt on the job. I've seen what it's like working for the government. It's not an easy job. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen at working for the government that people don't know about. It's not an easy job serving the public. I've been there, so I can probably relate to what these workers are going through. And I don't like to see the government shut down because I understand. I'm informed. I'm seeing what's happening. I've seen things happen in the inner city. I've seen things happen growing up being a minority. I've seen these things, but it hasn't made me bitter. It's made me want to work harder to be a better person. And I've tried to give people the same attitude as me. You cannot be pessimistic. You have to encourage yourself. Let's get to story number 4. Drugs, police, human trafficking, and justice. All of these stories combined together, they relate to something. Because you have to understand what's happening in this democracy. We're at the halfway point. We're at the 35-minute mark. But drugs, police, human trafficking, and justice crept its way into the top 8 stories. Two female rookie police officers have been shot and killed in 2 days. If you cannot tell me that there are people who refuse, especially people who have been incarcerated, the criminal system, this is what the fight is against. So you're making good people suffer all the time for people's negligence. People who don't want to admit they've done something wrong. So good federal workers have got to suffer. While you've got people in Congress boasting about what they've been doing. The reality is that these people have dedicated their lives. They've sworn in. Section 8 of the Constitution protects them. Protects all Americans. If you don't believe me, read it yourself. You've got government officials in a deadlock right now. You've got a wealthy man who's been wealthy all his life in the high office right now, and he's holding federal workers hostage because of a border wall. But I'm telling you right now that you cannot make good people suffer for bad people's behavior. It's been going on throughout all United States history. People have always had to wonder why they've had to fight. This is what's happening in America right now. There's people who just don't give a damn. Police officers. There's two sides of the coin, folks. And I'm telling you what's manipulating people's minds. What's making people greedy and good girls go bad. It's because they feel cheated. These federal workers, they could be some of the ruthless people right now. Some of them could even be plotting to assassinate the president. But you see their testimony. And while these congressmen are out gibbling and working on their health care plans, we just paid for almost $1 million for a president to be buried. Innocent workers are suffering. This is reality. We've forgotten the basis, the whole principle of what this thing is about. Two dead bodies after a fight escalates into a California bowling alley. Then you have a drug overdose deaths skyrocket amongst women because they feel guilty. They don't want to bring women, they don't want to bring children into a crazy ass world that we live in. So they're starting to feel like they have to get abortions. Then they hear that some lady, Margaret Sanger, has purposely, by design, put people into the slums of the world and said she want to eradicate all ghetto babies. Folks, this is reality. Catholic bishops, that's made it to the top 8 as well. I haven't even got to that one. The people who are supposed to be fighting for the children have even gone nuts. A teacher tried to traffic an underage relative for sex to men in Morocco. Yes, a teacher tried to traffic an underage relative for sex to men in Morocco. Police suicides are rising. The drug dealers have told Americans, justice informants, on how they're getting drugs into the country. They're smuggling them in. When they can't get them through one part of the border, they've been going underground. They've been putting them in things to like cars. They've been hiding them. They back in the day, they even used to put them in veterans' coffins to bring drugs to the country. They go into the system. They stay into the system because of the rules. Nobody wants to eliminate. They get a redemption status. Some of them fall back into the system, and the game continues to go. Some of these people refuse to live by the law. Some of them are gang affiliated. Let's keep going here. I'm going to go because this is what's happening. I'm telling you what's happening. This doesn't have to do with Democrat, Republican. This is reality. They even catch these people. They catch them and they tell them what they're doing wrong. They confess. Just like the president. Some people think he's got ties with Russia. You think he's going to confess? He's plotting on his money. This is the problem when money changes people's mindset. When there's no sacrifice. When there's no goodwill. If I've got to be the Black Knight to come to the table and talk about this, the label is mediator, but if I got to dress up like Batman and start flying around the city saving people, I'll do it. I'm not really afraid to die. I'll suit up. Because I'm sure there's something going on the other side, because all the stories I read, oh my God. I don't know how I keep my sanity. I get depressed sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not perfect. I like women. So I get a little, I'm not gonna sit up there and throw money at no prostitute, but I like women. Time to time, I'm not perfect. Let's get to story number 5. Like I said, if you want to contribute anyway, METHOZ@INC.com, Methodity.com. We're almost at the 45-minute mark. But there's some stuff happening in the world. Oh my God. And one thing I do not like to see is I do not like to see government employees suffer, because I was on the job, man. That's a rough gig. If you do not know what it's like to be a civil servant, public servant at that, this is going both ways. I mean, you got good people always having to suffer for bad people's behavior. It happens all the time. It's like a phenomenon in human nature. People can't figure out why is it like that. Why do innocent people have to suffer for bad people's behavior? Why would a criminal decide to shoot an innocent baby to get everybody's attention? Why not go after the source? Why take all of these government employees? If I've got to sit here and talk till I get blue in the face so people can understand what's happening, I hope they care about me the same way. But if they don't, then it's all right. I'll be the hero. 5. Story number 5. Find it out. Mediation is tough, but somebody's got to do it. Whew. I've even got a halls in my mouth. I've been taking my medicine, so I'm a little dry, but I'm fighting through it. For the sake of this lovely red, white, and blue. A lot going on in the world. Story number 5. There's something going on with people and religion that is making everything confusing. I was talking to Gary, the board off, before he left, and I was telling him, we were talking about the mindset maybe years ago when you were in the civil rights era and you were just in the 60s, transitioning to the 70s and the 80s, where you had people who were just willing to stand up for righteousness. And, people have their flaws. Martin Luther King probably was a womanizer, but the idea of people trying to stand up for people's civil rights, the fact that there was segregation and so much injustice going on inside of America, period, just inside the world, and some people thought of his agenda as socialism. It could have been related to some of his ideas, but the guy admit, well, his heart was in the right spot. They said when he died, his heart was probably twice the size it was as a normal man. And I think that's when people are referring to religion, it's always been a source, but there's been so many scandals right now, even within the Catholic faith. But there's been some good things happening as well. That's why I will not choose to just dwell. But the fact that you've involved and you've molested children for years, and just so many things. I mean, just the name, but the rebellion against just religion in general right now. The fact that some people just choosing not to believe. There are people who have claimed that they've been fired from companies for refusing to have sex scenes. Actors who have been, but this is in the Constitution. That's what makes it valid. That's why it crept into the top 8, because it's in the Constitution that we have the freedom of religion. And people have been abusing that. I mean, they've chosen. Some people just don't know who to follow or what to follow. Some people have taken matters into their own hands. I mean, I've been a victim myself, but I've had great pastors in my life, great people. But that's just the life that I've led. I've raised Baptists, but there's a lot of people who are against religion right now. They don't trust it. They don't give it a chance. And they've chosen to live their lives. Some women have been mutilated by reverends. Some people, even in the Islam faith, women don't feel like their faith is passive enough for women. So it's not like religion is a bad thing. It's just the people involved. This is what's happening. Which leads us into story number 6. When you've got gangs, story number 6 is gangs and criminals in the spotlight. So you've got religion, and then you've got the force. Religion has always been a force, but in this country, you choose. You have the right to choose, the right to the freedom, and that's what makes it so special. But there are still people who just refuse, who just don't want to believe in anything. And there's just been, and then you have gangs. If you don't know your research on gangs, you can look and find out that gangs were started because of the fact that people who consider themselves moral forgot about the people on the bottom. So they decided to create gangs to rebel against the system. So they go out and rob and steal. And that's just the way humans, that's the way, when they feel left out, this is what they do. Put marks and tattoos on each other, go out and rob, and this is how they feel that this is the justice for them. It's been going on throughout all of human history. So this is what's happening in this country right now. You're starting to see all of these forces collide. If you're just tuning in, this is the basis of the show has been about the top 8 that made it in have been centered around the fact that there's been a shutdown. There's been things happening in society, and there's been people who do not feel like they're getting a fair shake, so they're taking matters into their own hand, and innocent people are being held hostage all the time. But like I said, if you don't believe me, read Section 8 of the Constitution. We're entitled to a government. Taxpayers are entitled to be paying taxes, paying into the system, many forms of government, many forms of governing. Some stories that surfaced in MS-13 members charged in New York brawl. They were let go from ICE custody. And this is what the battle is about. This is what the president is putting on his top plate, saying this is the reason why we've shut down the government, because the fact that people have been breaking the law and we need to shut down the border and make everybody suffer until we get a border wall. And Democrats are just as guilty. There's some stuff going on. There's some crimes. I'm telling you how gangs are started. There are some teens, some people, some human beings feel left out. They get together, they start beating each other up, they start telling each other about marking territory, finding some artists, some spray paint, marking territory. They start creating violence, going in and robbing banks, stealing people, and then some people turn to them when they don't feel ISIS, and they go over to other countries and start rebelling against the government. They start getting funding, stealing and killing and having sex and raping women. This is what human beings do. It's the balance of good, and if you want to call good or evil, some people even write books about how criminals are heroes. Let's get to the top two stories that made it to the media. If you want to contribute in any way, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com. I've gotten through 6 headlines and developing stories that made it in. And these are the top 8. And I mean, I'm getting to the top 2 stories here, but you're starting to see. I'm trying my best to paint a picture on how we're at this point right now. We're heading into the top. We're at the climax of the movie, and there's some innocent people working for you. For your taxpayers are paying these people, and they're not working. Trash piling up in the parks. Political theater. Some people haven't been paying their mortgages. If you want to contribute anyway, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Or if you want to sponsor a program, you're more than welcome to. Every little bit helps me. I've taken everything I've gotten to this small little business plan. I mean, I've never seen a profit, but I've always invested into the community. But if you want to be a part of it, I don't ask for much. All it does is go right back into the community to put people to work so they can eat. I'm not a selfish man. I wasn't raised in a wealthy family. I don't even know what $1 million looked like. If I seen it, I'd probably pass out. Me and my dad I wouldn't even. Who knows what would happen but I'd probably spend it back into the community. That's what I've done with all my little benefits and all my little government money that I've spent. I've put it right back into the community. I don't take vacations too much. So if you want to help out, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com. Every little bit counts. I'm willing to work. I'm all banged up. Brain's messed up. I got bad nasal passages, but I'm putting up a fight. Every night I'm thinking about something great. I feel great, and I'm giving you greatness. So if you want to contribute in any way, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. I'm not taking any sides. I've been on the left and the right. Both of them are wrong. So I'm standing in the middle. I've seen them both do crazy stuff. Pastors doing the stanky leg at I've seen things. They can call it new gospel right church, but that people gonna do what they want to do, folks. But somebody's got to pay up. Somebody's got to start reading the book. Somebody's got to take charge. And as a host, that's what I've chosen to do. I've chosen to go through every story every week to get you the details. So if you want to help out, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. We're almost at the end of the show. So let's get to the top 8. The top 2 stories that made it to the top 8. If you want to contribute, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. I don't know how to do it. I really don't know how to present to you in any other way. Should I be Mike Tyson and just be straight out with it? I'm a savage mediator. I'm a beast in the ring. I'm feeding children. I'm feeding the 5,000 with mediation, with stories to inform you. Mike Tyson may be biting off ears, but he's a different character from me. He's welcome to mediation. We can talk about some things, but I'm telling you right now, in mediation, I'm going to give you what's the brutality of human nature, all in one story, all in 1 hour. Feel like a champion. I feel like a champion. I'm in the last 2 rounds, folks. Last 2 stories. Keep an eye on your children. Communication is key. A teenage girl was murdered. Her family was murdered, mutilated. Well, she was murdered, a teenager, by her eloping. I guess she eloped with her boyfriend. There was also a Wisconsin teen that vanished, but she emerged three months later. You have to communicate with your kids. This is some serious stuff. R. Kelly is being cited for running a sex cult. This guy has been singing bump and grind videos forever. They're finally putting him on the spotlight, and he's been telling people what he's been doing in his videos. The lady's been loving him for years, but now they're saying that he's been, I guess he's been raping little girls. I don't know, but this is what they're saying. Teachers charged after videos show her dragging autistic boy through school. You've got kids they made it into the top 2 stories. Kids cause 800 G's of damage at a Houston car dealership. Some people are saying kids are getting bad as ever. People don't know what's causing it. We're at the last 5-minute marks. I've got to head down the stretch here. We're at the last story, the top story that made it to the media this week. If you want to contribute, you can visit METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. The longest shutdown in U.S. history. And what It has to do with the Constitution. Folks, if you have not heard, the government has shut down some parts. Some parts are still running. In this show, I've explained, I've tried to, I mean, you've probably known already, but I've tried to enlighten you. There's some things going on in this country. There's the informed and the uninformed. There are people who understand what's going on. There's people who don't. And there's a battle going on. Because there's innocent people, federal workers, who are not working because of the fact that there has been some bad behavior across the whole world. And they're saying that a border wall, if we spend money, we will shut down the United States government for a border wall because of the fact that I feel as president that this is going to solve all of this country's problems. So we're going to spend 25 billion taxpayer dollars on a border wall. We're going to shut down the federal government and make the people who've been working on your behalf to keep you safe, they're going to make them suffer. And then we may give them back pay after their house has been repoed. Oh, that's a real, this is what's happening right now. Can you believe it? Artists, nonprofits suffering. Scientists who get government grants not being able to study. Emergencies, talking about declaring an emergency. Donald Trump walking out of meetings with Democrat Nancy Pelosi. National parks. Oh, I mean, this TSA workers falling behind on their bills. And the only hope we have left is the Constitution, Section 8. Local stories that made it in. Mormon proposes closure of Market Street Elementary School. Youngstown Board discusses plan to retake control of schools. Regional UAW directors vows to fight to keep GM Lordstown open. Folks, if you have not seen it by now, there's a divided line between the right and the left. And I'm telling you right now, if you didn't get anything out of today's show, if I didn't do anything for you, I'm trying to get you to understand why people choose to go insane, why people choose to do the wrong thing. Because they don't feel strong enough. They don't feel powerful enough to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. Me, myself, I've seen things. I've been indoctrinated. I've taken the oath to serve and protect. I've done my time. I got injured on active duty. I do not feel obligated to do this, but I feel like as a citizen, I should. If I do not go out or talking or trying to get people to wake up and realize the power that they have as a citizen of this country, to understand the Constitution, that I would not be doing my civic duty. I could be a gangbanger. I could be a complete nutcase, or I could be violent. I could choose to combat my fellow man. But we're getting closer and closer to a day where there was a civil rights leader who just took it amongst himself to say, you know what? Everybody should be drinking from the same fountain. Everybody should be together, and this country should be working together. But there's some things happening across the world, and there's some people trying to get your attention. And they're doing it, and they're taking matters into their own hands. And the news is just going to stir up. It's going to hype things up, and it's going to power you yourself to look in the mirror. And you're going to have to decide, like everybody else, what choice or what choices may benefit you. There's good people out there working right now, and they're not eating. But as citizens, we have to come together. If you can create a GoFundMe for a border wall, I'm sure you can create a GoFundMe for federal workers who are suffering. I'm broke. I'm spending my money doing this for them. I've done my research. I'm telling you, federal workers out there, that you have some rights. I've served for the federal government. I know how it is. Don't give up hope. Don't do the wrong thing. Wait it out. I'm sure that good will overcome this evil that we've been seeing. Well, thank you so much for tuning us in the media this week. Those are the top 8 stories that made it to the media this week. Shutdown. That's the number 1 story, and it's affecting a lot of people. It's affecting me because I hate seeing people suffering. Like I said, if you want to contribute anyway, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, Method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. I want to thank you so much for tuning to the media this week. I'm gonna head out. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the media with me, Brian West. Have a good week, everybody.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The mediator is